if one of them slips up a bit, their spot could be stolen away by the pack of X4s.
Now, if you're Shrout, you got to be absolutely thrilled because you're in a fantastic matchup here. BBD playing Sneak and Show, a deck that he's been playing for a little while now. Shrout playing Death and Taxes, basically a deck that is designed to be Sneak and Show. Yeah.
Death and Taxes is a deck that we have yet to see this weekend, mainly because of True Name Nemesis. It's a card that really hurt its equity right now in Legacy, but Andrew Shrout showing us that this deck is far from dead.
You're going to see a Gitaxian Probe here from Braun-Duin. 2 copies of Aether Vial, a Port, a Wasteland, 2 planes, and then a Stoneforge Mystic.
So this is really that mana denial hand, which you can see from Death and Taxes. You see an Aether Vial, Port, and Wasteland. Basically, the game plan for Andrew is to make an Aether Vial, use that to cast his spells while using his mana to take away Brian's.
The problem here for Shrout is that he doesn't have a Caracas in his hand yet, and that's the most important land in the deck to be able to stop all of the shenanigans that Sneak and Show can do. Now Braun-Duin has an idea of what he's up against, what Shrout has in his hand and what he needs to play around, and right now it does not involve Caracas.
Yeah, if Brian can combo fast enough, can find his pieces and just execute on turn 1 or 2, he can really pretty much avoid the trap that Death and Taxes is often laying for the Sneak and Show player.
Now, of course, 3 copies of Caracas here in Shrout's deck to make sure that he is okay against those large legendary creatures from Sneak and Show. And he has plenty of hate cards in this matchup, of course. 4 copies of Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, 4 Phyrexian Revoker to name Sneak Attack with. He does have 3 copies of Flickerwisp. He can get a little creative with those as well, but he needs to find those relevant cards in this matchup and find them fast before he dies.
Yeah, so we see a turn 1 Ponder then from Brian. Brian's main deck has very few defensive cards. He has 3 Spell Pierce, 4 Force of Will. That's it. So once the lock starts to take place from Andrew, Brian really has few ways to break out of it as he has no sweepers or removal in the main.
Shrout's going to start off with the Plains, and he's going to predictably cast an Aether Vial and pass the turn back.
All right, so this is the turn where Brian has some leeway. We see a Sneak Attack in his hand. We see a Lotus Petal and maybe a Soul Land. I think Brian's going to go ahead and get this Sneak Attack down before Shrout gets the lock.
So there is Sneak Attack now. Currently, Braun-Duin does not have a red source of mana. He used the Lotus Petal to get that out there. You see a Scalding Tarn in his hand, though, and he does have a Force of Will as well, so I'm not sure how strong or weak Braun-Duin's hand is right now, but he has gotten step 1.
Yeah, well, that's a huge play for Brian right now. Shrout's going to have to find a Phyrexian Revoker. It's pretty unrealistic that he can actually just race the Sneak Attack. All Brian will need is a red source plus a monster. He should be able to find both of those.
So Shrout has ticked Vial up to 1. He's already taken his draw step for the turn, so we're in his first main phase. He has a Port, he has a Wasteland, he has another Plains in his hand, but does he have the important cards? Does he have a Caracas yet? Does he have a Revoker, as you mentioned? What can he do to get himself out of this situation?
Yeah, we see right now his original plan was to Port and Wasteland, but those seem less than appealing right now.
Yeah. I think we're far past that plan. We need to actually find some cards that do something of relevance.
Let's see here. He's gonna go for. He's trying to choose between the Port and the Wasteland. Looks like he's gonna go for the Port, and I think he's gonna try to keep Brian off blue. He's gonna take away Brian's ability to cantrip.
Which I think is a smart play there by Shrout. Take a draw step, does Braun-Duin. He draws a Ponder.
And there you go. Excellent read by Shrout there. Brian is unable to cast that Ponder because of the Rishadan Port play.
Yeah. Now, does Braun-Duin have a land in his hand? Now, here's the interesting thing, because I think he does have a Scalding Tarn, which he does. So he's going to play that. Now, the big question is he going to try to play Ponder? If he does, is he going to get an Island or a Volcanic Island? Because he knows that Shrout has a Wasteland in his hand. So if he uses that to get a Volcanic Island, he immediately kills it. His Mother Runes is going to come in through the Vial.
Yeah, I can't imagine he'll do that because of the reason you said. He does play 1 basic mountain in his deck as well, so he can secure that Sneak Attack mana for himself.
Wasteland going to come into play for Shrout. It's going to target. This is the big question: is what is it going to target?
He may target Scalding Tarn.
I know. This is actually quite fascinating. No reason to target Ancient Tomb. The problem is already in play. So
yeah.
Ancient Tomb providing extra mana isn't going to do very much.
And I think that's it. I think it does target Scalding Tarn. And you have to think Brian's getting a basic mountain.
It's funny because this is so backwards to target a fetch land with a Wasteland at this point.
Right.
But to me, it just feels like it's the right play. I think it gives him the best chance to actually win.
Brian, it looks like he's going to go ahead and call the fact he realized that Andrew may have a second Wasteland. But what he's going to do here is Brian really wants to cast the Ponder in his hand, so he's
Yep.
going to fetch for the Volcanic Island here. Well aware that his mana may not be safe, but Andrew cannot lock him off this turn.
Mother of Runes into the red zone. You don't see that very often, but now is the right time to be doing that. Upkeep, tap that Volcanic Island.
All right, so Brian will get a chance to Ponder now, and he just
draws an
draws
Emrakul.
Emrakul.
Now Ponder. Does he find a red source? Brainstorm, Force of Will.
Looks like it's a Scalding Tarn.
I think that is a Scalding Tarn.
That should be good enough. We will see. Yep, looks like he has taken that third card, which I believe is the Scalding Tarn. And I see no reason for him not to go for it right now. Plays Scalding Tarn, cracks it. Looks like this will be for a mountain and should be for the game.
It'll be for all of those permanents that Shrout does have. Now, he will be able to get him down to 5. Now, of course, it is very unlikely that if all goes to plan here for Braun-Duin, you know, he'll be able to find another creature to actually attack with and get the job done. But I have seen people come back from this before.
So here you go. Emrakul into play. Swings, annihilates the board, deals 15. We'll see if Shrout can pull one of those comebacks.
So Shrout ends up at 5. Emrakul's going to go to the bin, shuffle everything back in. That'll conclude BBD's turn. And now Shrout, he's got some work to do. Just a little bit, not much.
Just a little bit. Well, first he has to draw a land, and then he does have an Aether Vial. Oh, no, by the way, he still has to deal 12. There's that.
Yeah. But hey, no big deal.
Oh, that's fine. He still has that Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, he has not actually put that into play yet. So he actually does have ways, and it is conceivable that Braun-Duin couldn't just miss a ton here.
And there's a land. Looks like he has land and a Rishon Import. Wow, just has everything.
You're using everything loosely here, as Force of Will is going to take care of that Aether Vial. The question is, what spell does he want to remove? He's got 2 blue cards. He's got a Show and Tell and a Spell Pierce.
Yep.
Neither card doing very much right now.
I mean, I think Show and Tell is actually not a card. No, he's going to go ahead and keep the Show and Tell, discard the Spell Pierce.
All right, so Show and Tell, the last card in BBD's hand. He's going to take a draw step here.
Is there any enchantment removal in Shrout's deck that BBD has to be
Revoker's the best that he can do. As there's a Sneak, there's a Brainstorm, and that is, I think, a Cantrip.
I believe it's a Jataxian Probe.
Okay.
So no help yet. Brian will want to sequence his cantrips so that he plays the Probe followed by the Brainstorm, so that he digs as deep as possible.
It's funny. How deep does he want to go? Because he doesn't want to Brainstorm lock himself right now. You know, that's the big thing, is how aggressively does he want to do it.
He doesn't have a shuffle, so he is already Brainstorm locked.
Here is the Gataxian Probe. Show you a Mother of Runes, a Vial, a Stoneforge, and a Plane. So Shrout can rebuild.
Yeah, this is very fine. All right, Brian redraws. He's going to go ahead and pass the turn. So Andrew's still at 5, but still alive.
It's funny because if Shrout just draws a Revoker, he's in great shape.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's Stoneforge.
So no Revoker yet. Shrout's equipment package is just the Jite and the Jite Sword and Batterskull.
Yeah, he's got 3 in his main deck.
So probably I would go for the red-blue equipment against the... No, I stand corrected. He's going to go for the Batterskull.
1, Brainstorm, 2, Tarn, 3, Show and Tell.
So no help, but another Brainstorm and a fetch land is the next best thing here. It's going to let Brian see 3 more cards. He is drawing to 7 more outs. And any of them are instantly lethal.
Yep. So give that deck a hearty shuffle as he's looking for one of those Emrakuls or Gristlebrands to end this game. It's like walking on eggshells if you're Shrout. It's not a comfortable feeling.
All right. Yep, and there is that repeat Brainstorm. We will see. Does he hit it? He hits a Ponder. No, a Polluted Delta and a Show and Tell. So this is actually fine. Brian would like to... Well, it's 2 Show and Tells, so he's going to have to draw one of those. That's unfortunate for him. But next turn, he can He's best served by waiting, and that's what he's doing. He's going to play the fetch land, crack the fetch land, and then ponder.
Yeah, he just says go again. So now Shrout's going to take a draw step here. He's got the Batter Skull ready to be able to put into play. Again, Revoker is actually going to be quite good if he's able to find it. Port's not going to have much of an impact on this game. So again, he just needs to get a clock in play because Braun-Duin is at 10 life, and he's just going to pass the turn back because Batter Skull coming into play makes it a 2-turn clock.
Right.
So
yep.
He's got to fade for 2 more turns.
So Brian can either ponder or fetch then ponder. By fetching then pondering, Brian sees one more card right now, but he gives away his fetch land, which may be more valuable here. I think he's actually supposed to ponder first, but it's very close.
He's going to sacrifice the delta, go down to 9. Doesn't really change the math on the clock at all. But again, he's just looking for that legendary creature to get the job done. Can Shrout dodge the bullet for another turn?
All right, so now he has a fresh deck again. He's going to go ahead and ponder.
All right, let's see him. Number 1, sneak attack. 2, 3. There is the Monstar. He found Gristlebrand.
All right, that should be enough. You'll see the activation and the 7/7 flying through the air for lethal.
Yeah, and finally Shrout shrugs his shoulders and says, it's about time, man. And BBD does win game number 1 over Andrew Shrout as they share a smile here about what took you so long. Ponders and Brainstorms finally cooperated. As we'll take a look at the sideboards here. For Shrout's side, he did not have Caracas, he did not have Revoker, Thalia, any of the things that actually make this matchup quite difficult for the opponent. So he's going to want to start there. But he also has 2 Sunlance, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Cataclysm, 2 Oblivion Ring, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Mind Break Trap, a Mirror Crusader, a Neathersworn Canis, and an Enlightened Tutor. So the best ones here are certainly going to be Oblivion Ring, because that's going to blow up Show and Tell in a big way. You know, Neathersworn Canis is certainly fine in this matchup, and do you want to board in that Singleton Enlightened Tutor?
My guess is you'd want the Enlightened Tutor. If you really like O-Ring, then you probably like finding Oblivion Ring.
Okay.
You can also find Phyrexian Revoker.
Yep.
So you can deal with a sneak attack, and so if you have an Enlightened Tutor, you can either deal with a sneak attack, which would be the Revoker, or deal with a Show and Tell, which is the Oblivion Ring. I think because of that card will come in.
Outside of that, not a ton of great options here for Shrout, but again, this is a matchup that his deck is prepared for in the main deck. He doesn't need a sideboard and a ton of help because he should beat this matchup. It's part of the reason that he's playing Death and Taxes, but currently down a game and an opponent who's going to sideboard in some help.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest help that Brian gets is he gets 3 Pyroclasms out of the board in this matchup. A lot of those lock pieces we were talking about, Thalia, Phyrexian Revoker, those kind of cards are very susceptible to Pyroclasm. Outside of that, he does not have too many weapons in the matchup either. He could through the breach is the other thing he could do here.
I do see a lot of I do see Huey Jensen board then a lot in this matchup because it's so difficult for Show and Tell to actually be good here. Where he might chop down a couple of Show and Tells and go the creative route of boarding in Blood Moon to shut off Caracas and some of the other lands in the deck, and then using Through the Breach as the way to get the monster across and into the red zone. It's not a perfect plan, but it is one that I have seen work.
I mean, I think the difficulty in this matchup for Sneak and Show is that when Death and Taxes does draw its hate cards, Sneak and Show is left relatively helpless.
Mm-hmm.
So as we saw there, Shrout didn't have the hate cards, and as a result, this ended up being a pretty decent game for Brian.
Yeah. I mean, the Gataxian Pro showed Shrout's hand of, really nothing of relevance.
Yeah.
A couple Aether Vials, a little bit of Mana in Island, Wasteland, and Port, and then a Stoneforge Mystic. And as great as Stoneforge Mystic is, Sneak and Show doesn't care about that card at all.
Right, and so we saw that there was no Caracas from Andrew, there was no Revoker from Andrew. Brian was able to more or less uncontestedly or sneak attack things into play.
Yeah. So if you guys are just joining us at home, Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt, Star City Games Open Series featuring the Invitational here in Las Vegas. We've got a standard open going on behind us as well, which we will be cutting into after our Invitational Swiss rounds are done. So make sure you do stay tuned for that. But right now we're in round 15 of 16. We've got some players who have basically locked up their top 8 in Max Brown, Taya Steele, Brian Braun-Duin, and Alex Bertoncini. So congratulations to those 4 players virtually making top 8 at this point. Basically right now what they're doing is playing for standings to see who will play first and draw first in the elimination rounds. For Andrew Shrout sitting at 11-3 right now, this match is incredibly important for him. If he wins this round, he can likely draw into the top 8.
Yeah, like we said, there are 4 players at 11-3, and they control their own fate right now.
Mm-hmm.
Any of them with a win should be able to put themselves into the top 8, but with a loss, and they may open the door for someone else to take one of those top 8 spots.
So you see both players smiling at the ready. You know, Braun-Duin knows he's in a tough matchup here. Shrout knows he's in a very good matchup, but he was not able to get the job done in game number 1. Fortunately for him, he'll be on the play for game 2, and he just needs to draw some of those hate cards this go around and do what his deck is built to do, which is absolutely clean up on Sneak and Show.
All right, so now what do you think of the mana denial? Let's talk about the mana denial package in Death and Taxes. So we saw Shrout keep that hand. I would say probably not in the blind. We're so close in the standings that I assume people start to know what their opponents are on. He kept a hand with the Aether Vial plus Mana Denial package. Now, he kept it on the draw as opposed to the play, which I think makes it a lot worse. That seems like a very keepable hand in this game, for example, where he's on the play. But general thoughts, I guess I think that's a weaker game plan on the draw because of the fact that Sneak and Show can play Soul Lands and Lotus Petals.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Sneak and Show can just overpower you with their Soul Lands and Lotus Petals, you know, I generally dislike that plan on the draw. I love that plan on the play, especially in combination with Thalia, but being able to start with a Vial into, you know, activate Port into Wasteland you and really just mess with their mana while putting their spells in for free, it's part of the allure of the Death and Taxes deck. But on the draw against a deck as powerful as Sneak and Show, well, we just saw where BBD didn't even care about the fact that he had that draw. Probed, saw what was up, forced in a sneak attack right away, and then the entire time it was, man, if I ever find a monster, you're basically dead.
Right. So we have a keep from both players, and the game was underway.
Horizon Canopy is the start here for Shrout, so he's going to go down to 19 and probably take some more points of damage along the way, but he's going to start off with the best thing he can start with is the Vial, and we'll find out what the rest of his hand here with a Mother of Runes. He's got a Phyrexian Revoker. He's got a Stoneforge Mystic, a Flicker Wisp, and a second Mother of Runes.
So he has a really nice creature curve. He has 1-drop, 2-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and an Aether Vial to go with it. That's all pretty good. The Horizon Canopy was the only land in his hand, so he's going to be relying pretty heavily on that Aether Vial.
So you see BBD taking down the contents of Shrout's hand right now, and Shrout, yeah, it's interesting because he kind of wants to draw lands, but he doesn't need to draw lands at this point. It would just be nice if he drew lands, I think. I think he can still operate perfectly fine without them.
All right, so Brian, we'll see. I think for him it's, you know, how much mana ramp did he keep? How fast can he get something on the table? Looks like he's going to cast Argentaxian Probe, this time for mana, and pass. He does appear to have some sneak attacks and Lotus Petals in his hand. He may be able to kind of run back game 1, where he made a turn 2 sneak attack.
Yeah, but this time Shrout actually has the Revoker, and now he's got a Mother of Runes as well, and Mother of Runes will actually be able to protect Revoker from bounce spells or pyroclasms or anything of that nature. So his draw is lining up pretty well here, but you see Braun-Duin draws a Lotus Petal, so how crazy can he go this turn?
I think he can get a sneak attack into play if he has one. Looks like he's going to go ahead and do nothing. End step, Shrout will put another Mother of Runes into play.
A Vial going to tick up to 2. Moms are both active right now, and Shrout does have multiple Revokers in his hand as well as a Stoneforge Mystic. So now he can really start putting the clamps down, protect them with the Mother of Runes, and move forward from there.
Yeah, now in his draw was excellent this turn as well. He drew a Thalia, Garden of Thraben. Now he does, if he had another land here, he could go completely commit to the board, but even so, the Thalia will be very strong.
All right, so Thalia is going to come in right now. It's going to make things difficult here for BBD as far as cantripping is concerned and casting Lotus Petals and everything else that Thalia does, and it is protected by not 1, but 2 copies of Mother of Runes.
Yeah, the reason to not attack with either Mother of Runes here is so that even now with Brian Pyroclasms, Shrout can save the Thalia and a Mother of Runes.
And better to play it safe in this situation.
Yeah, if Shrout manages to assemble this lock, the lock's probably just going to be good.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't have to worry about the time he takes to win. Once he has the lockdown, he'll win.
BBD going to sacrifice a Scalding Tarn. Going to go down to 17. We'll see if he's going to search out a basic or a non-basic as we do go, and it is going to be a basic mountain.
I do approve of the land selection that BBD has. I like that he has a revised mountain, and then he has a core set white bordered, but new card frame island.
So those are the most hideous lands I've seen in a while.
I hope they aren't even matched with the other basics. that would be the best.
Here's a Lotus Petal he's going to have to pay 1 extra for.
Yeah, so because of the Thalia, he just has to do this with his Lotus Petals now.
And this is, again, exactly where you want to be if you're Shrout. Making him pay for those Lotus Petals, that's going to take up a turn. That'll let you get closer. He's going to want to leave Vial on 2. There's a Port off of the top. So let's see how he wants to do. What he wants to do this turn.
Well, he can vial in. Yeah, he can vial in a Revoker, and he can cast the Stoneforge. So, well, he's going to start with a swing for 2. That puts Brian down to 15. We'll see whether he wants to make a 2-drop with the vial and port, or he could just make double 2-drops.
All right, he's going to start by vialing right now. So there's a Revoker. He's going to name Lotus Petal with that.
Okay, so naming Lotus Petal's pretty good here. That does leave him slightly vulnerable to a Soul Land sneak attack play from Brian.
And now he's going to port, too. He's going to tap the mountain.
So just all mana denial here for Andrew Shrout.
I wonder if that's better or worse than just playing the next Revoker.
So he has a pair of Revokers.
Yeah, he has 2 Revokers in his hand.
Okay. Yeah, we see Brian's hand. He does have some Force of Will going on. Doesn't look like he has too many combo pieces. He does have the Pyroclasm now.
Yep, Mother of Runes doing a nice job.
Right, the 2 Mother Runes means that Andrew can save any 2 creatures.
The other thing too is that if he wants to cast a Pyroclasm, first of all, he can save the Thalia and the Revoker. But second of all, it's going to force BBD to actually use a Lotus Petal to get the job done with that, and that's just perfect for what Shrout is trying to do, since he's just trying to deny mana every single way.
And it looks like Shroud's thinking about upkeep, making the 2-drop so that he can go ahead and pump the vial up to 3. Remember, he does have a Flicker Wisp here on 3 mana, so there's reason for him to keep going. His lock's still not totally complete, though. He's going to leave the vial at 2.
He has a pretty hard soft lock, which is a ridiculous thing to say. But, you know, he's almost got him in the hard lock here. He's going to attack for 4 and, of course, leave the Mothers back on defense.
All right, draws a 3rd land, plays a Plains. Now has the option of casting Flicker Wisp if he so desires. He also still has that extra Revoker that you mentioned.
He's going to tap the mountain again. Again, just on a mana denial strategy here the entire time. He can vial in the Stoneforge Mystic next turn, or he can vial in a Revoker naming Sneak Attack. So again, he's got plenty of options on what he wants to do with that vial.
Well, what the Stoneforge Mystic is going to do is right now, Andrew's board is a 3-turn clock on Brian, but the Stoneforge Mystic will, on the crucial turn, change the 3-turn clock to a 2-turn clock.
And those petals are locked on right now because of the Revoker too. So there's almost nothing that Brian can do at this point. You see he's going to search out a land with the Scalding Tarn.
Yeah, he only has access to 2 mana, or 3 mana, and there's a Thalia in play.
Yeah. So if he were to Pyroclasm right now, he could use the 3 lands, and the Mother could protect the Thalia and the Revoker, which, you know, is going to shut off the... the petals are still going to be shut off. And you can really see, you know, Game 1 wasn't a really good indication of how difficult this matchup is for Sneak and Show. You can really see here that, you know, once Death and Taxes does what it's supposed to do as Pyroclasm is placed onto the stack, I'm sure Shrout will have a response or two. You can see how difficult it is for Sneak and Show to win.
All right, so Clasm is cast by Brian, though. We'll see which 2 Andrew chooses to save. It's probable that he may just not save any of the Mother Runes. They may just protect the other creatures.
It feels like to me the other creatures are more important. Now, of course, if Brian does run into another copy of Pyroclasm and he does have 3 in his sideboard,
things
get
very
bad.
Bad for Shrout.
Yeah.
So it's a very aggressive play, I suppose. Maybe you just keep the Revoker alive and then let the Thalia go.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. That Thalia's doing a lot of work right now. That's tough to want to let that go. I mean, if you have a backup copy in your hand, it's certainly easy to do that. But it's really tough not just want to keep your 2-power creatures there, especially when you know you're going to be adding another 2-power creature to the board.
Right, remember, yeah, I think you need to keep a Mother of Runes alive because you're in such a commanding position here that you don't want to lose your whole board under any condition.
Okay, so he's going to save 1 Mom, 1 Thalia, and then he can vial in another Revoker to shut down the petals again if he'd like to. Which I'd be surprised if that's not what he wants to do, because I don't think the Stoneforge is really all that good right now. So yeah, he's going to put Revoker in.
Back. We'll confirm that he is shutting down Lotus Petal again.
Vial's going to tick up to 3. So now this is representing Flicker Wisp. Again, another card that makes it difficult for Braun-Duin to be able to go off. He's going to attack for 4, put BBD down to 5, and then Flicker Wisp almost makes this game a lock, because whatever Brian would do, You see the port's going to end up tapping a land here. Flicker Wisp will take care of.
Yeah, and Brian has to know that this is probably his last turn to draw something.
Yeah. And he's going to pick up his permanents and concede the game. So Andrew Shrout, with the mana denial strategy and those hate bears, is able to tie it up. We'll go to a third and final game here between Death and Taxes and Sneak and Show. And again, if you're Shrout, even though you lost game one, you still got to be incredibly happy. You're in a matchup that is quite good for you.
Yeah, even on the draw, it's possible that Shrout's just the favorite in this matchup.
Yeah.
It's a great. As you see, the lock pieces are very hard for Brian to navigate there. You have to think if Andrew gets a similar hand next game that he'll be a pretty big favorite.
Yeah, he's just, in both of these games that we've watched so far, no copies of Karakas yet for Shrout. And Karakas isn't game over, obviously. It's just a very good tool among a deck that has a lot of good tools in this matchup. But he would like to draw Karakas, I would think, in one of these games.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is playing, as we said, 3 Karakases, and that's due in no small part to decks like Sneak and Show.
Yeah. So again, after sideboard, we saw the power of Mother of Runes. Stoneforge Mystic doesn't play a huge role in this matchup. Revoker is great. Thalia is great. Sarah Avenger doesn't play a very big role. 3 copies of Flicker Wisp can play a huge role depending on how the game goes. Mirren Crusader just providing a clock and a hard-to-kill clock, but for BBD's deck, it's not very hard for him to kill because of Pyroclasm. And then Aven Mind Sensor, a card that doesn't play a huge role in this matchup, but you can maybe catch a fetch land, intuition, all of that jazz. Swords of Plowshares, Equipment and Jite, Sword of Fire and Ice and Batterskull, and of course those vials that we saw play a huge role in that second game. That's the composition of his deck. He's going to bring in those Oblivion Rings. He's gotten a Lightning Tuner to bring in along with an Aethersworn Canonist to make it so that Braun-Duin can only do one thing a turn for the most part. He's got a nice configuration after sideboard.
Yeah, very much. And as we said, it does get a little better for Brian after sideboard just because of the cards. We saw, like, Pyroclasm. If Shrout didn't have a double Mother of Runes opening, that Pyroclasm could have been a lot more damaging for him, especially if Brian had a follow-up Pyroclasm.
Yeah. Would have been absolutely huge. If you're Shrout, you want to get off to that Vial start again. Hopefully you have a Karakas and, some backup where you can get a Revoker or a Thalia into play right away, unlike the first game where he kind of floundered around and not doing very much with the mana disruption. For Braun-Duin, the way that I oftentimes see Sneak and Show win this matchup after sideboard is they just power out a Show and Tell and cross their fingers, or they power out a Sneak attack like we saw in game 1 and just hope that it's good enough.
All right, so we see an opening 7 for Braun-Duin. It does have a Gristlebrand among others in it. Like I said, speed is very valuable for Brian in this matchup. He really just can't go late with the deck. He wants the hands with Soul Lands, hands with Lotus Petals.
All right, here's a probe. There's a Karakas along with a Vial. Actually, 2 copies of Karakas. He's also got a Vial. He has a Stoneforge Mystic as well, so he doesn't have the best hate bears. So 2 Karaks.
Yep, and an Iganjo Castle to boot.
Ah, yes. Champions of Kamigawa Superstar.
So yes, it's a land-heavy hand. It's a 5-land hand, which to me really shows that when you have a 5-land hand with an Aether Vial, that Andrew really believes that Karakas is just that important of a card.
It's hard to argue otherwise, right?
I mean, Brian sure only wins with 8 legendary creatures.
Yeah. I mean, Sneak and Show can certainly get Sneak Attack, can certainly get creative and make it so that the Karakas is not the end-all, be-all. But he has to go through some hoops to actually get there, and you'll likely have enough time to get there. Here's a Polluted Delta to start. Going to sacrifice that and pass it back. But one thing that actually Braun-Duin does have in his deck that is kind of fascinating is he has Ashen Rider.
Yeah, so Ashen Rider is typically a card that I see against Sneak and Show decks.
You don't see it normally in the deck.
Something that, I mean, you're as a Goblins player yourself, you're fairly familiar with putting that card in
There's 4 of those on my sideboard, of course.
Right. So Brian, though, putting them in his own deck this time. Is it because I think it's because it's not legendary?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a big deal. Can take care of Karakas or some other problems from permanent and actually get the legendary creature through. As you see, he's going to Ponder here, go by it through the breach. I wonder if he's going to keep that or if he's going to shuffle away with the Ponder at this point.
Like he can through the breach and Ashen Rider. Though that's a little unimpressive. I think he'd want the Ashen Rider to actually stay. And this is just interesting. So it's there to get rid of the Karakas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be there to take care of Karakas. Depending on if there's some other runes out there, can take care of a problem from permanent, maybe even kill an Oblivion Ring. As you're going to see Karakas #1 come into play. There is an Aether Vial and passing the turn back.
Yeah, and we do see Brian also has an Emrakul in his hand, so he has all the monsters he can need. If he can find a Sneak attack The Ashen Rider can clear the way for the Emrakul, and then Emrakul can come swinging through.
Brainstorm is going to draw Brian through the breach, a Gataxian Probe, and a Polluted Delta. So it can be a perfect Brainstorm because he does have the fetch land. It's just time to decide what to throw back and what he doesn't need anymore right now.
Well, I think because he's seen Karakas through the breach seems very underwhelming right now. Putting Ashen Rider through the breach isn't very impressive, and putting Emrakul through the breach won't really work because it'll just get bounced back to his hand.
Yeah, and especially when putting Ashen Rider through the breach to take care of Karakas when you know your opponent has a backup Karakas, also not all that exciting.
All right, so we see two back there. Polluted Delta, shuffling two of them away, and looks like he's going to go for another Gitaxian Probe.
So will it be a non-basic or a basic? It looks like it's going to be a basic. Doesn't want to open himself up to Wasteland.
So there you go. So these two islands next to each other, very classy.
Yeah, that's one word you can use. I don't know what to think about this.
Maybe he just didn't have enough revised islands. You know, he had to improvise.
I think it's gotten to the point now where people are starting to troll coverage so that we just have to look at these just disgusting, filthy lands. I think that's what's happening.
I've always played mismatched lands, though.
It's one thing with Joe Lissette, but this is on purpose. I know that.
All right, so Ponder from Brian on a empty deck finds nothing he really likes, so we're going to go with a shuffle from the Ponder.
Wouldn't surprise me if he's looking for maybe one of those Blood Moons that he has access to in his sideboard. Oftentimes see the Sneak and Show players boarding that in, and you saw the lands that Shrout has. He has two Karakas, he's got a Ganjo Castle, and a Horizon Canopy. Blood Moon, while there's a Vial there and he does have a basic Plains in his hand, it would still be good here. It would solve one of the problems.
All right, so Shrout's going to start building up mana of his own. Remember, he has a huge mana hand. And within pressure, all he had last time we checked was a Stoneforge Mystic. I don't know if he can afford to tap out for the Stoneforge yet, though.
There's a Rishadan port. Did not have that.
Yeah, but so do you port or do you need to leave up Karakas? That's the question. And I almost think...
I think you're safe to port this turn.
And Brian can slam a Soul Land and Show and Tell right now. Well, no, then Andrew can still Show and Tell in a Karakas. Okay, so we're fine. Because he has a backup Karakas, he can play this one aggressively.
Yeah. Looks like it's going to be time to cantrip. He's a little bit unsure of himself. He's going to go with hard casting Gataxian Probe. All right, so what's changed?
Well, it looks like we have more lands. There's still that Stoneforge Mystic in there.
I think the only thing that's changed is the Swords to Plowshares in the grip. Stoneforge. There's a
Just more
Wasteland now.
lands.
Yeah, there's
a
a Wasteland
a
now.
Horizon Canopy. So it's just Stoneforge and lands for Shrout right now.
He's got another Karakas, a Plains, and a Ganjo Castle, Canopy, Stoneforge, and a Wasteland. So a lot of lands. Ponder here from Braun-Duin. Stoneforge Mystic can provide the clock, and he can do the mana denial strategy here. But the mana denial strategy here is better than previously because he has Karakas.
Right. So Brian needs to do a fair number of things before actually going for a kill because of the Karakas. Now, Brian found two lands and a Petal on that Ponder. The question is whether he wants a land. He could either take a fetch land or just shuffle the entire thing away. We'll go for the fetch land.
There's a Tarn.
Yeah, and it's Brian's done a fair amount of damage to himself this game. We see him already at 14. He'll be at 13 off that fetch. What that actually will serve to do is he's put the Stoneforge Mystic from a 4-turn clock down to a 3-turn clock here. I think he doesn't really mind doing that. That's kind of expected. I think he needs to avoid putting it to a 2-turn clock on his own. So that, he doesn't want to really bring himself much lower than 11.
Agreed. There's your castle. Surprised to see that as opposed to Wasteland. I mean, Wasteland doesn't do a ton right now. I happily admit that, but I was a little bit surprised. I guess it's easier just to play the castle so you have another white source, tap with the port, and then leave Karakas up.
Yeah, and it looks like what he's going to do. The castle useful in this matchup because it protects Thalia from Pyroclasms.
Yeah. A sweet interaction. I love when people go deep on deck building and they just find this ridiculous land that actually does something great. I remember Shizo won a lot of games.
It gives them fear.
Yeah.
We saw a Ganjo Castle first back in Modern. It was being used to target Geist of St. Traft.
No Pyroclasm for you. Going to sacrifice 2 Scalding Tarns here. He's going to go down to 12. Now, you said...
I don't think I want him to go... If he goes lower than 11, I suppose he can do it, but he has to realize that with this Stoneforge Mystic, he is costing himself a turn by doing that.
Okay. So there's a basic and there's another basic. So Basic City, USA from BBD.
Yeah, those are all the basics in his deck, actually.
Yeah, they're all different. I'm sure that's not on purpose.
Well, 2 of them are revised. And then one's, I think, 7th edition. And then one is 9th, I want to say.
You know your sets.
Yeah,
You know your sets.
I like ugly lands.
Show
excellent.
and tell. Ashen Rider, is that you?
We will see here. If you're Andrew, you have to be thinking, all right, well, what's actually happening here? I mean, you'd assume it's a Gristlebrand, right?
Yeah. Right now, in the face of Caracas, you're just going to cast Show and Tell. And this would give me some pause, too,
I mean,
if I was Shrout.
I would think if I was Shrout that it's a Gristlebrand, but be thinking, you know, wow, you really want to draw 7 that bad? Okay, I mean, this Aether Vial might kill you. Little does he know there's an Ashen Rider in the Sneak and Show deck.
Mm-hmm. But is there an Ashen Rider in the Sneak and Show hand? That's the big question here.
Well, it was there earlier. I don't know if I got... The question is whether he kept it through the Brainstorm.
Shrout giving some serious pause to, okay, what exactly are you up to? It looks like he wants to Vial in response, and this could be bad for him, because it looks like he wants to Vial Stoneforge in response, maybe, and then he could put the Batterskull in off of the Show and Tell.
Thinking that, hey, that would be a 2-turn clock if you draw... That would be a defense against Brian drawing 7 with Gristlebrand, right?
Now here comes an activation. There's a Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to see this Ashen Rider coming.
Gotta think about what's the worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that can happen to me right now? The answer is Ashen Rider. That is the worst case scenario.
Well, the obvious thing that you think your opponent's getting is you think he's just trying to draw 7 with the Gristlebrand.
Yep. Especially when you don't have much of a clock. It seems like it's safe to go down to 5 potentially, and then just move forward accordingly.
All right, so you see the Batterskull there. Looks like Shrout's going to get ready to bring the Batterskull to Show and Tell.
That's exactly what he does. And bang, Ashen Rider.
Ashen Rider takes care of the Batterskull. The unexpected plays.
So there goes the Batterskull. So now it's Stoneforge Mystic versus Ashen Rider. One of these things is going to win the race.
Well, I'm think it's Ashen Rider right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, right now as it stands, yes. Shrout's got plenty of draw steps available, and Brian is basically all in on this 5-5. Gonna leave Vial at 2. Take a draw. It's a Phyrexian Revoker. Not a bad draw because it increases his clock, but not the best draw.
Well, remember, Shrout had all lands, so now he has all lands and a Phyrexian Revoker. And it looks like he's going to start by drawing a card off that canopy. Yeah, the lands in among lands in his hand is a Wasteland, another Caracas.
Oh, he just passes the turn. Just tap onto your land, tap your mountain. Make sure you can't Pyroclasm. You take a draw step, will BBD. Draws an Ancient Tomb. He's got an Emrakul in his hand. I think he's got a couple of monsters. He has Through the Breach right now as well. So Shrout ever taps that Caracas.
Not Through the Breach in Brian's hand, really probably not able to do anything. It's really weak against the Caracas, and then the backup Caracas as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not great, and I think something's going to have to go right for BBD to be able to use this profitably, but he does have a Volcanic Island in his hand. He also has a Scalding Tarn as well, so he can basically have a Volcanic Island that can't be destroyed by Wasteland, and then he has an Ancient Tomb too, so he can get creative, and if Shrout ever does tap down that Caracas for whatever reason, he can actually, through the breach, maybe steal this game here. All right, Ashen Rider. First things first, you're into the red zone.
Yeah, so that's the start of a 4-turn clock. Shrout's going to have to make sure that his clock is faster than that.
There's Ancient Tomb.
And there's no red for Brian to Through the Breach right now.
Yep. Shrout's going to draw a card. He draws a Wasteland.
Yeah, so many lands for Shrout right now.
Okay, he needs action, and he needs it fast. As now Thalia's going to come in. Shrout's going to untap. He'll take a draw, leaving his Violet 2. Going to add a Sarah Avenger, I believe, to his hand.
Yeah, well, that'll be good enough to add. Remember that this race is probably still going to go in Shrout's favor. Like, he can probably get about 5 power on the board. The one thing is that Brian can call stop on the race at any time. Brian does have the biggest creature.
Yep. So an attack here for 3 is going to put BBD down to 9. 9 to 15 of the life totals here.
And we will see. Sarah Avenger can be played at any time here.
Could even be hardcast if he wants to, but I think that would be a pretty big mistake. Because you just don't ever want to tap that Caracas if you don't have to. And Shrout's going to play super safe and pass the turn back.
Yep.
Upkeep, tap your mountain.
By not playing Sarah Avenger, it means that he gets to use the Rishiden Port, which is almost certainly more important to take Brian off the red mana. I'm surprised that he didn't play a Wasteland that turn.
Me too. Me too. Opting for the basic instead.
Alright, so we see Brian has a Through the Breach, a Volcanic Island. Among others. The question is, you know, can't really swing Ashen Rider, but what else can he do then?
Yeah, I mean, if he's not attacking, he's, you know, putting up a wall, but that just gives Shrout more draw steps to find more relevant things.
Yeah, he can put up a wall as much as he wants, but chances are that Shroud will eventually break that wall down unless Brian's attacking.
You have to do it with a bunch of crappy white creatures, but hey, if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Well, he does have 2 Ashen Riders in his sideboard, so he has at least 1 live draw here. Looks like he contemplated about Through the Breaching and then decided against it.
Yeah, at this point, you know, he doesn't want to take 2 more points of damage either, because that will probably cut, I mean, some amount of time off of his clock. I'm not sure if it's a full turn at this point. He does have a sneak attack in his hand. That's mighty interesting.
Yeah, he has a sneak attack. He does also have this Volcanic Island in hand. The worry about playing sneak attack is he'd really like to have double red when he plays it, so that it doesn't get Phyrexian Revokered. I mean, there's a Violon too, so even playing sneak attack may just get Revokered.
All right, so 4 mana. And he's actually going to need 1 more mana for that because of Thalia. So he has to change the way that he taps the mana for that, and that means it's going to force him to use Ancient Tomb.
All right, so he goes down to 7. Still not enough damage on Shroud's side of the board to win this turn.
But I think in his calculations of what he wanted to do that turn, I think he didn't realize that he needed 1 more mana, and that 1 more mana actually deals him 2 points of damage.
Right. Now he will have enough red mana to start sneak attacking an Emrakul. He can sneak attack it, get it bounced, and then sneak attack it again.
Yep.
So that should actually be good down the following turn.
Well, I think the problem here is that Shroud actually has a Revoker in his hand.
That will be a problem for him, however.
So let's see what this is going to be.
Well, it's either the Sarah Avenger or the Phyrexian Revoker.
You see Shrout is treading carefully here because he knows the one thing that can really mess with him right now, even though he's in the driver's seat, it feels like, and of course, you know, we've got access to his hand and BBDs as well, is he has to be scared of Pyroclasm.
Right.
Because if he puts Revoker down, yes, Shrout can tap one of those red sources down with a port. Maybe he commits his Wasteland to take down the other one, but Pyroclasm is still very live at this point for the Sneak and Show player.
Well, Andrew drew a second Revoker, so now he can cast a Revoker, and then...
Ooh, that's big.
Oh, that's big. It's
Swords to Plowshares.
Swords to Plowshares on the Ashen Rider. Ashen Rider is a death-only trigger, so while Brian will gain 5, he will not get to exile another permanent.
So Brian will go up to 12, but this attack will actually put him down to 6, and the Swords is going to cost 2 for Shrout because he has a Thalia in play. So both players making sure that they have their Thalias correct.
Yeah, he looks like he's trying to decide whether or not he wants to Wasteland here. Or he's saying which land to tap for the Thalia.
Yeah, I think he's saying which land he needs to tap for the Thalia. It looks like he's going to go with the Waste. Okay. So now he says, all right, let's get my attack on.
And Sarah Avenger will swing. That'll put Brian down to 9.
I think that
5,
Shrout wants to
6.
violin. Yeah, it should put him down to 6, and I think that Shrout wants to violin the Revoker right now. Again, this opens him up to Pyroclasm actually being pretty good.
Very good.
But Pyroclasm won't kill Sarah Avenger, so he just passes the turn back.
And actually, he can, if he had more white mana here, if he had spent, he could have played this in such a way that he'd have white mana to activate Igonjo Castle and save his Thalia as well.
Big draw there from Braun-Duin. He drew Pyroclasm this turn.
Well, that was a good draw. That was very good. Now the game got more interesting. All right.
Yes, it did.
So let's go back to that two-mana play, the Revoker play. Shrout tapped White Source and the Wasteland. Had he tapped Port Wasteland, then he would be able to, at Ganjo Castle, save the Thalia here.
So now...
Well, now things are interesting.
What's he looking at? Boy, did this get interesting, because now Pyroclasm is on the stack. That resolves. It takes down everything but the Avenger, and he can't afford to go, all right, save my Thalia, because then he gets lit up by a... Oh, no. If he saves Thalia, he gets lit up by Emrakul, and it's exactly...
He gets annihilated. Well, no, he'd have to annihilate 7. He'd have to chump block with the Sarah Avenger.
Yep. I think you just let this happen. Oh my goodness. Is he gonna save that Thalia?
That would be a mistake. We'll see.
Oh.
Okay, he's gonna. Nope. He is deciding against it.
I can't tell what he's gonna. Oh my gosh. He is going to
bin the creatures.
let them die.
All right, there we go. Found the right play. Still alive. Remember, this is with a win here. Shrout will nearly certainly secure his spot in top 8.
Yes.
Can't say he wouldn't have earned it.
This game has been mighty, mighty close.
All right, so Pyroclasm resolves. There still is 1 red up for Braun-Duin. He can try to run out sneak attack with Emrakul. It will get bounced if he tries it, though.
He's going to port on the end step, target the mountain, which I like a lot.
So that's so Brian can't put in an Emrakul to block.
I like that play a lot. So now Shrout's going to untap. Where's he going to put the vial? Is he going to take it up, take it down? Taking it up to 3.
Oh, it's up to 3. So does he have a 3?
That opens things up to Flicker Wisp.
Mm-hmm.
That opens things up to Aven Mind Sensor, Mirror and Crusader, attack for 3, put Braun-Duin down to 3. Wasteland your Volcanic Island, leave you with 1 red source. Play a Plains.
Pretty big here. Looks like Shrout is going to pull away with it. But we'll see here. Brian gets 1 last attempt to try to sneak that 15-15 in for exactly 15.
This is another vial.
Yeah, it gives him something else to annihilate if things go bad. If Brian, the problem is if Brian draws another red source, that is bad news for Shrout.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Remember, you can sneak attack Emrakul into play. Andrew can use the Krakus to bounce Emrakul, but if Brian has a second red, he can put it right back into play with sneak attack.
And then he would have to chump block with the Sarah Avenger. Braun-Duin. Considering things in his upkeep right now, do I sneak attack now? Do I draw a card? Decisions.
All right, and we will see. He does have a Through the Breach still in his hand. That's something he can't really do much with. He also has a Gristlebrand in his hand. So, yeah, he can't gain anything with the Gristlebrand, though.
I believe the grip right now is Gristlebrand, Emrakul, and Through the Breach. All right.
So this is still on his upkeep,
yep,
correct?
we are still on his upkeep. He's
So
not
why
drawing a card
is he?
yet.
So he's in his upkeep. Let's see here. And he's going to go ahead and activate Sneak Attack. And looks like it'll be Emrakul.
Okay.
Well, Shrout's pretty much locked into Krakus.
Yeah. Take a draw.
And he gets Show and Tell. Well, Brian can go to 1 and Through the Breach the Gristlebrand.
Doesn't have another red mana.
You're right. He does not have another red. Okay. Right. If he had the other one red, we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah, and I don't like if I'm in Brian in that situation, I just sneak attack through the Gristlebrand, right? There's no reason to do it any other way.
Do the Gristlebrand, you'd said?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason through the breach when you can just use sneak attack to do it instead. So.
All right. So he's going to Show and Tell here. I don't think there's going to be any help for Brian.
There's a
Gristlebrand into play. Says go. Shrout should be able to bounce this.
Untap. He's going to draw his card. He's going to activate Krakus, bounce this, attack, and Andrew Shrout wins this match over Braun-Duin 2-1, death and taxes. Moves on to 12-3, and now Shrout will likely be able to draw in the next round. You see a deep sigh of relief there for him. As a Sneak and Show player, Braun-Duin, he's likely a lock for top 8 with this loss anyway, but the seeding is going to change things now in the elimination rounds, and that's a big deal for him.